Story 1. I have two reasons. The first is making fun of their interests and hobbies. That is why I do not like showing anyone my artwork. I will, however, do everything I can to support and encourage my children. The second is breaching confidence. If my children tell me something in confidence, I will not use it as a topic of conversation with others. If I tell my parents something, everyone seems to know. My mother could not understand why I was upset when she told a stranger at Walmart the whole story of the events leading up to my divorce. Because of both issues, my mother wonders why I do not tell her anything. I do not want that for my children. I want to give a big hug to everyone who has shared their experiences. Let us all go live our dreams. Story 2. Well, I had a stepmother who insisted God was punishing my dad for being mean to her, while blood was flowing from his mouth, eyes, and nose. She then refused to drive him to the hospital. That always seemed like something I would want to avoid. Any friends I made, she would tell me I could not hang out with them for some reason. She grounded me for 6 months because I forgot to take out one of the trash bags, even though I was not allowed to go anywhere anyway. One time she made me stand in a corner in my underwear without heat because she heard a noise that woke her up and assumed it was me. Once I confessed I was allowed to go. I spent about 18 hours insisting it was not me, ugly crying in the corner until about 3 a.m. when I was 8 years old. I had to endure 10 years of that because she kept emptying my dad's bank account every time he was paid, so he could not afford a divorce lawyer. I hated that woman. Story 3. I was spanked. I thought I would grow up and spank too because I ended up okay and thought that was how you corrected children. But as I got older, I thought back to how I treated other children who made me mad or would not listen. I hit them, and then it clicked that this was not what I needed to do. Story 4. I try to control my children's lives and blame the other parent for all their problems. Story 5. Lecture. My mother could go on for hours about even small misbehaviors. Somehow it usually circled back to how I did not keep my room clean, even though the rest of the house was just as messy. When I need to have a stern or serious discussion with my children, I force myself to make my point in 5 minutes or less. I have even said, "Look, this is taking way too long. Just don't do that again. Okay?" I also apologize if I yell as soon as I am emotionally able after an angry outburst. I do not remember my mother ever doing that. Story 6. Be unapproachable. Talk to me about anything, anytime. Everything can be fixed. Story 7. Use them as leverage against the other parent. Abuse them. Allow a significant other to abuse them. Abandon them. Then return years later once they have grown and try to cause them as much pain as possible for reasons no one can understand. I have 4 sons and I genuinely cannot imagine doing to them what happened to me. It blows my mind. Story 8. I became my mother's only confidant from a young age, to the point where I was telling her she needed to get a divorce when I was only 14 or 15. I would never put my hypothetical children in a position where I am emotionally dependent on them in that way. Story 9. I refuse to get loaded in front of them. Growing up in a family of heavy drinkers has soured me on drinking, even socially. I do partake occasionally but not often. Deep down, I believe alcoholism is in my genetics, so I steer clear unless the occasion is perfect. Story 10. I want to avoid judgmental behavior. I want my kids to know that I truly love them for who they are and that they do not have to hide any part of themselves because they are afraid I will stop caring about them. Story 11. I constantly compare myself to other people's children and belittle my own achievements. Story 12. I am 32. When I was 14, my dad shot himself, leaving my mom with 4 children, ages 14, 12, 3, and 1. 3 years ago, my brother hanged himself. He was going to be 18. 1 year ago, my mother died by suicide while I was heavily pregnant with my daughter. I could not fly to her funeral. I have 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old. This is longer than I planned to make it. I have learned never say never regarding parenting, but I never want to put my children through what my parents put my siblings and me through. Edit. I never thought my comment would get so much attention. I have read every reply, but I cannot respond to all of them. Please know that I am very grateful for the outpouring of love and support you have shown me and those who have lost others to suicide. For those who are thinking about suicide, you are loved, you are worthy, and I am sorry. Please message me if you ever need to talk to someone. Story 13. I had too many pets in the house. I loved them all, but at its peak we had 11 cats and 3 dogs. I was embarrassed and never wanted to bring people to my home. Story 14. She would redo things I had done because they were not exactly the way she would have done them. My mother would refold the laundry or remake my bed. It drove me nuts and made me feel like I should not even bother trying. Story 15. Minimize anything they pursue. Hey, thanks for the award. That's so kind. Story 16. Teach them by comparing them to their better behaved, smarter siblings in a very condescending manner, of course. Story 17. Random beatings because I decided they were thinking something I did not like. Periodic insults to keep them from getting arrogant. You know what you did. Story 18. Wake them from a dead sleep on a school night to introduce them to the drunk friends I just came home with because I am a bartender. Story 19. I was not affectionate. My mother was very distant and not physically emotional with me growing up. I realized that if I have children I would want to read to them, hug them, celebrate their accomplishments, and make them feel comfortable sharing their thoughts and feelings with me. Edit. Whoa. I was not expecting any of the comments or upvotes. I usually post and move on. But you know what? Hugs for everyone, only if you consent. I enjoyed reading some of the comments and will continue. This has been the most affection I have received during quarantine, so I hope you are all doing better than I am. Story 20. When I was a child, my brother and I would ask to help whenever our father worked in the yard. He always said we could help by staying out of the way. I let my children help so they learn to contribute, develop self-worth, and appreciate teamwork. Story 21. Being too strict can actually make my child good at lying, which is harmful. Story 22. Never actually saying I love you. Just so everyone knows, my parents are very supportive and I know they love me. They just lack a little in showing emotions. Story 23. If you do not stop crying, I will give you something to cry about. That was stupid to me when I was 10 years old. Story 24. Physical punishment made me really resent my parents. My children are 16, 18, and 20, and they are incredible young people. My parents actually brag to people that we never used physical punishment, which feels good. Story 25. I was not allowed to have any friends or date. At 14, my door was removed and I was told I didn't deserve privacy because I had slammed it. When I asked to hang a sheet for privacy, they said I didn't deserve it for slamming the door. I had my first panic attack then, and my stepfather told me I was over-exaggerating. My depression and anxiety were always belittled. I was in a mental hospital. My dad and stepmother came to see me and my stepmother kept telling me what a horrible person I was and that I was only there to get away from her. My stepfather called me a slut and punished me for things my brother did. He also molested me on several occasions, and when I told my mother, he convinced her I was lying. He told me my feelings didn't matter. If my child ever came forward and said something like that about my spouse, I would not refuse to believe them or accuse them of lying. Story 26. Put the other parent first. I remember my mom left my cousin and me at Claire's an hour after closing because she had to make sure her husband was fed and settled. I still feel for the employee who stayed with us. My stepdad was not abusive. My mom was overcompensating because she had been unhappy when she was with my dad. Story 27. Force them to play sports they do not want to play competitively until adulthood. Story 28. I will never call my future child a whore, a slut, or a whiny bitch because she is on her period. I will never judge her boyfriends or call her a whore for being kind. I will never fat shame her, even if she is underweight, or make her lie to get out of the house. Story 29. 1. I will not demand that they choose which parent is right in an argument. 2. I will not compare them to their siblings or be unfairly hard on one child compared to the others. 3. I will not refer to them as my retirement plan. 4. I will not blame someone else's mental illness on the child. 5. I will not claim things are gifts and then use them to emotionally blackmail the child by saying they owe me. 6. I will not take away the child's sense of privacy. If they do not want to talk to me about their sex life, they do not have to. I will ensure they know protection is an option and will educate them about sexual health. 7. I will not let them fall behind in school. 8. I will not take credit if they suddenly become really good at school and end up at a top 50 university. 9. I will not demand they do a certain job. 10. I will not forget to tell them they are good enough. In other words, I will not be a narcissist. Edit. Are you all okay? I am doing fine. Honestly, I have made peace with myself. Story 30. I am a completely different kind of parent than the one I had. My parents weren't that bad, but they honestly thought they knew everything and failed to listen. They were also very violent in their punishments. I believe my kids are here to be better than I am. That's my job. I do that by listening to them and letting them make their own choices. As I always say, I don't care if you end up cleaning toilets. Be the best toilet cleaner you can be and take pride in your work. The one lesson I have drilled into my kids is, the first step to being good at something is being bad at it. I have worked really hard to give them discipline, the knowledge that they can overcome any challenge if they focus, work hard, and regulate themselves. Story 31. I used to talk negatively about body issues, dieting, and shaming things like stretch marks and cellulite. It took me many years to appreciate my body. I got a lot of stretch marks when I was 15 and felt ashamed. I went on many diets and tried many pills. I now have a difficult relationship with food, but I have grown a lot and am trying hard. I will not do this to my future children. Story 32. Do not argue in front of them. My parents fought a lot around me when I was growing up, and I hated it. I do not want to subject my children to that. I remember one time when I was about 8 years old. I was in the car with my parents. They were arguing as usual, and being trapped in that metal box with them screaming became too much. We stopped at a red light. I unbuckled my seatbelt, got out of the car, and started running. My mother, who was in the passenger seat, ran after me. After my father pulled the car over, he ran after me as well. They caught up to me, and their attitudes completely changed. They promised they would not fight in front of me, but they broke that promise repeatedly until their divorce. I hope I can do a better job of keeping that promise. Story 33. My mother is the queen of guilt tripping. I hated her for a long time because of it, but now I tolerate her. Story 34. My paternal grandfather left my grandmother when my father and uncle were children, refused to pay child support, and ignored his sons. My grandmother had to work extra hours to put food on the table. In his second marriage, he had another son and spoiled him. My father and uncle have no contact with their father. My father has been a far better parent to me and my sister. He raised us well and became successful in his field. Even as a child, he recognized his father's behavior was wrong and vowed to be a better father. He has done very well for himself. Story 35. These are the things. Never hit your child. Never call your child names. Never berate your child in front of their friends. Never say no when you can say yes. Never be indifferent. I was 17 when I formulated these ideas. I am 65 now with 3 grown sons. They may say I messed up a few times, but we'll laugh about it. Story 36. Belt. You get in trouble for having an opinion. Story 37. Give up on them. I was kicked out of my house at 16 and was never welcomed back. My parents placed me in the system. Story 38. They would not let me buy a video game console. They said it would rot my brain. I never understood why watching television was okay but not gaming. I have played video games ever since I left high school. My son, daughter, and I all enjoy them. It still stings when I think of that Nintendo Entertainment System I wanted so badly back then. Story 39. My parents tried to force me to be who they wanted, and I could not. That kept me in depression, anxiety, and apathy for years. Because of that, I vowed never to force anything on my children. I wanted to give them every opportunity to be themselves and to join whatever activities they chose. For the most part, this has worked. I struggle with one decision by one child. My parents forbade almost everything. I wanted to play sports, act, and sing, but none of that was allowed. Naturally, when my children wanted to act, play instruments, sing in chorus, and join sports teams, I was overjoyed. The trouble is I have one very talented football player who does not want to play. This has been hard to accept, but I have set aside my own desires. He is not just good, he was all-state as a freshman. He can compete against older players and won many trophies. Now he says he does not like it. I can see him using football to earn a college degree and even reaching the professional level. He is that good. But he hates everything around football. So I swallow the disappointment of not getting to watch him play at a high level and replace it with pride that he can stand up for himself. He faces tremendous peer pressure to keep playing. Grown men call him stupid, and his mother offers him money to play. He wants to do other things, and I will not force him. If I respect his wishes, he may choose football again later, but whether he does or not does not matter to me now. The hardest thing as a parent is letting go. I have 4 wonderful children, and letting them be themselves has already made them happier than I ever was. Story 40. If I ever have a child, I want them to always know how much I love them. I want to be affectionate with them and to make sure they know they are good enough. I love my parents, but they were not affectionate and did not tell me they loved me. They often compared me to others, and I felt I could never do anything right. I felt both hatred and love for them. Now I just love them. I am glad they have softened. Story 41. Because I said so. I always have a reason when I ask them to do something. If they ask why, I explain. I explain my reason, the reasons behind it, and other factors I considered. I can go on for a while. They know this. The other day, I asked my 7-year-old to do something. She asked why. I thought for a moment and asked if because I said so was a good enough reason. She thought for a moment and said yes. For about 3 seconds, I felt like I had nailed parenting. Story 42. They did not outright criticize my looks, but they criticized the appearance of every person they saw, especially women on television. Their instinct was to find something wrong with a woman's appearance. They placed so much importance on physical appearance that it felt like a person's inherent value. This made me extremely critical of my own appearance, picking apart every real and imagined flaw. I remained somewhat sensitive. As a child, I cried easily. My father would scream at me to stop, which only made me cry more. He told me that crying was bad for my health. My father is a medical professional. They compared my brother and me to other children nonstop. This was a cultural practice. In our culture, it is entirely normal and expected to compare children to others. I was often compared to my brother and vice versa. When I was accepted into college, I ran into the house, excited and proud, and showed my father the acceptance letter. His first words were that I only got a $5,000 per semester scholarship and that my brother got $10,000. There was no congratulations. Story 43. Smoke. People in my family often died around age 61. Story 44. I have never hit my child and never will. My parents believed in spankings. I do not. There is a better way to reach your children. Story 45. Saying I told you so. How are my kids supposed to ask for my help if I ridicule them for their mistakes? Story 46. My dad always said not to have children, and that the only way to be successful was to be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. My children are a joy. I may not be successful, but I am happy. Story 47. As a new mom reading all these comments, I just want to adopt all of you and show you love. Story 48. I doubt I will have children, but I am going to name a few things I would not say to them. 1. Telling them if they are a girl that they should have children because every woman needs to have children. 2. Saying their boyfriend or girlfriend is using them because I do not like that person when they have not done anything wrong. 3. Telling them that if they are sexually assaulted by someone they trust, they should just talk it out with that person, as my parents told me when I reported being sexually assaulted by a trusted male friend and one of my friends helped him commit the assault. 4. Telling them that cutting themselves is playing with their wrists. 5. Yelling at them when they do not come to me first for emotional support. 6. implying that they are a whore because they slept over at a boy's house. My parents did this when they knew I slept downstairs with the rest of the girls while the boys were upstairs with the boy's mother and a motion sensor camera that had an aerial view of the room and sent the mother a notification to her phone. Every morning she checked the camera footage when there was movement. Side note, I hate my parents. Story 49. Children obsess over their food intake and body size from the age of 9. I really hope I can help my daughter develop a healthy relationship with food and her body image as she grows up, rather than be the cause of an eating disorder. Story 50. I get home haircuts. I dreaded elementary school picture day because I knew I would look like a West Point graduate. I take my business to a barber who listens and does a good job, so I get that confidence boost. Story 51. Growing up, my mother never let us have Capri Sun. She claimed they were terribly expensive and worse for our health than soda. Once I started grocery shopping as an adult, I discovered that, as far as juice goes, they are not that expensive and are no worse than other juices. Now my kids have Capri Sun, and my mother rolls her eyes. Story 52. 90% of my childhood. 1. Use religion to cure depression. Forget about the depression and ask what there is to be depressed about. 2. Invalidate boundaries. 3. Hit on their friends, hit on them, or speak about anyone in their age range in a sexual or predatory way. 4. Punish before understanding the reality of the situation. 5. Allow people to call her mini-me or compare her to anyone. 6. Let her fall into malnutrition, anorexia, and atrophy. 7. Lie about her options if she becomes pregnant to force her into a situation that would make me look good to the neighbors. 8. Guilt trip her by appearing like a kicked puppy when others gave a valid reason not to do something. 9. Call her a cat in heat for comforting a crying partner in front of me. 10. Literally track her location and interrogate her about activities at each location. 11. Send multiple police departments across state lines to find her even if she has told each one to back off and to have no contact. 12. Harass her best and only remaining friend about alleged kidnapping until she hates her. Story 53. Use because I said so, or adopt an attitude of superiority toward them. Yes, I will discipline them where necessary, but respect is earned, not given. I will speak to them as I would wish to be spoken to. Story 54. Beat them and tell them they are worthless. My dad was a real mean drunk. Story 55. About having children. There are many people who should not have had children, and my parents definitely should not have had them. I am not mentally stable enough for children because of my mother's behavior toward me, so I have decided not to have any. The cycle ends with me. Story 56. I'm right because I'm the mom and you're the kid. Fuck that shit. I'm 27 and still hear it. Story 57. My parents would yell at me whenever they helped me with my math homework, which made me feel stupid for not understanding it. When I reached 6th grade, my mother compared me to my cousin, who was in advanced classes, and said, "Why can't you be like her?" This made me feel worthless, and I tried to kill myself and self-harmed for a few years. I will not make that same mistake and make my children feel that way if I ever have any. If you are struggling or feeling unsafe, please reach out to someone you trust, a mental health professional, or your local emergency services. If you are in the United States, call 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are outside the United States, contact your local emergency number or crisis line in your area. Story 58. I promised myself I would teach my children where babies come from. I never got the talk growing up, and I was molested at ages 9 to 10 by the same person because I did not know any better and it felt good. I did not know how to pronounce vagina until I was 14 and did not know that the penis goes inside the vagina until I was almost 16. My boyfriend at the time had to tell me. I did not know that girls could have an orgasm via the clitoris until I was 16 and it happened to me. So yes, sex education matters. Story 59. Their approach is threatening. Do not get me wrong. My parents are great people, but they calm my younger sibling by saying things like, "Go to bed or I will have to spank your bottom," or, "If you do not stop crying, you will not get television tomorrow." That approach does not work. I learned in a child care class that negative reinforcement is worse than positive reinforcement, and it makes me sad that they scare her into listening. Story 60. I experienced emotional, verbal, and physical abuse. I cannot remember my childhood because I have repressed those memories. Story 61. I was raised to believe that all drugs, including alcohol, are inherently evil. I grew up in a very conservative Christian home. I am still a Christian, but I am not conservative anymore. Instead of demonizing drugs and sex, I will inform my future children of the risks and ask them not to go overboard. I do not have kids yet, but I hope to have a relationship with them where they feel comfortable telling me things like that. I would much rather my child say, "Hey, I have been wanting to try alcohol," than have to pick them up from the emergency room after a stomach pump. I know that is an extreme example, but it illustrates the kind of relationship I want as a parent. Sometimes I feel like I have to put on an act around my parents because I love them, but if they knew half of what I have done, they would flip out. For example, I took LSD for the first time the other day, and it was amazing, euphoria, introspection, the whole 9 yards. If I told my parents, they would react the same way as if I told them I had tried black tar heroin. They would probably have that same reaction if I said I had smoked marijuana. My parents are amazing in many ways, and I am lucky to have them, but this is one area I plan to change when I become a parent. Story 62. My dad always told me my opinion did not matter. I struggled in my early 20s and in my first relationships because I was afraid to speak. I believed people did not care what I said. I did not form political opinions, and I still struggle to be proud of what I like. I love my dad, but I refuse to accept that. I will raise my daughter with respect, and I hope she is never afraid to tell me anything. Story 63. I have a hard time looking back on my childhood and finding any happy memories with my mother. With my child, it is important that he can look back and identify moments when he felt loved, nurtured, and connected to me. Story 64. My mother should never have had children. Ever since I was a child, she mocked us when we cried, saying things like, "Oh, life isn't fair," and laughing. Children cannot control their emotions, so mocking them is cruel and destroys trust. When I was 4 or 5 and in my underwear, I was crying and she took out a video camera and filmed me while laughing. She brought that up throughout my life. I disowned her for several years, and we do not speak now. I am in my 30s, and her memories of me are mostly from when I was very young because after I was kicked out at about 14, I never lived with her again. When I tried to reconcile and brought my girlfriend to meet her in my mid-20s, she mentioned the same thing. My girlfriend was uncomfortable and my mother said she would play the video at my wedding. I do not know which is worse, mocking a crying child, or the fact that the moment she destroyed my trust as a protector is the memory she recalls most proudly even after more than 20 years. Story 65. I beat my child. I came from a physically and emotionally abusive home. Story 66. Contrary to what many people probably think, hitting children does not work. It never did. It does not make children respect you. It makes them fear you. My father hit me several times when I was young, and it almost always made things worse. He hit me because I had bad grades when I was in 3rd grade, and strangely, my grades just kept getting worse. At some point, I did not want to see him at all. My parents have been divorced since I was about 5 years old. Even my mother noticed that I feared my father. If and when I have children who misbehave, I will punish them by grounding them or confiscating their toys. But I will never, ever hit them. My girlfriend completely agrees with me on this. Story 67. Be there for them. My dad was by no means an absent father. We would always greet him when he returned from work every night, and he was always home on weekends. But he was emotionally absent to a certain extent. Things got busier and he stopped reading to us at night. He spent most of his time watching soccer matches on television or working in his study. He gradually grew distant without our realizing it. I remember asking him to do things with me like help me build a lemonade stand. He usually turned me down because he was too busy. No big deal. I did them myself. My mother complained about this a lot. She was essentially doing everything for us and he was not giving her any credit. I remember her being angry when she forced him to attend a parent-teacher conference and he did not know any of our teachers' names. Things are much better now that my siblings and I are in college, and I have promised myself that whatever career I pursue, I will always set aside time for my children, watch them grow up, and be a genuine presence in their lives. Story 68. Understand or sympathize when they feel awful, and comfort them instead of telling them to stop crying or accusing them of being too dramatic. Story 69. Fighting in front of them and becoming angry if they do not take my side. Story 70. Getting angry over small things such as when a child refuses to eat dinner because they do not like it, and hurting the child as a result. Also having addictions. Story 71. Make them so afraid to discuss important matters that they never ask for advice or bring up issues. Use them against the other parent. Nag about jobs, relationships, or other personal matters. Never show affection except during public or special events. Tell them they will amount to nothing, including saying so within their hearing. Story 72. My parents were too kind to me. I did not need a friend. If my kids act like I did, they will not get away so easily. Story 73. They forced me to eat food I hated so much that it triggered my gag reflex. Story 74. My stepdad used to say that he would give me something to cry about. I let the same phrase slip one day when my daughter was throwing a tantrum during her terrible threes. I will never forgive myself for saying it. I felt as awful as he had made me feel. Story 75. Make fun of their interests and hobbies. Share every detail with extended family members. Story 76. The guilt and the screaming. I feared my parents, so I was very well behaved. As I got older, I realized I did not fear my parents in the same way other kids did. I feared the never-ending guilt trips. They would also make you feel stupid and small for doing the tiniest thing wrong. My mother was a screamer. I have had verbal altercations with her as an adult and refused to scream in return, which only angered her more. I refused to react that way. I am not perfect. I do get progressively louder when my children ignore me, but my initial reaction is not to scream. My children's father and I split up almost 10 years ago. My son was 2 years old. I do not have to be in his father's house to know that he yells at him for the smallest things. I can see it in how my son reacts when he makes a mistake. He spills milk and instantly goes into panic mode, apologizing and saying he will clean it up. No child should have that sort of reaction. Both of my children have said multiple times that they are free to be themselves at home, that they can make mistakes, and that I will listen rather than assign punishment. Story 77. An alcoholic said racist and homophobic things to young children to try to condition them into believing the same things. That really messed me up as a kid. Story 78. Yelling at them for minor mistakes, not allowing them to go out with their few friends, discouraging their hobbies and throwing away their favorite toys, telling them that their first love will cheat on them, and other controlling behaviors. Story 79. Never apologize. My parents could not admit when they were wrong. Story 80. I can't count how many times I've been shamed for liking video games. Even if my children like anime, reggaeton, or furry culture, I will support them. Story 81. I remember that as a child my parents would fight and scream at each other. Once I saw my father slap my mother. I did not know what to do, so I cried. After countless arguments, I became confused and began to have panic attacks. Whenever my mother or my father came near me, I felt panic and wished they would disappear because of the unpleasant feelings inside me. I did not know how to handle the mixed emotions, so I endured the pain alone. One night, I told my mother how I felt. She did not know how to respond, but she apologized and told me she loved me. I do not know how long I cried, but it felt like a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Now that I am older, I believe what I experienced was childhood anxiety. I do not want my children to suffer the same way. I want to be close to them when I become a parent so they can share their problems with me and I can support them. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.